What's up, guys? Welcome back to another daily Bible reading snapshot. Today in the book of Numbers, we're looking at two chapters, Numbers 32 and 33. These two chapters, what we see is the people of Israel are beginning to go into the land. They're getting ready to do that. And it says that before they go in, some of the tribes said, we really like the land on the other side of the river better. So remember, they are on the east side, if this is a map, right? The west would be over here, right? The east would be over here. The Jordan River's right here. They were on the east side, and they said, we actually kind of like this before we go into the promised land. How about we just kind of take this land for ourselves? And that sounds like, I don't know if that's a good idea. I mean, God was promising this land to you. Are we sure about that? And that's exactly what Moses says. We're really going to do that? But he makes a deal with them. He says, okay, you can have this land if you don't settle this land completely until we settle that land. So all your soldiers, all the army people, you guys need to go into the land and take the land. Don't just take this land and say, okay, we're good. We're not going to help the rest of the Israelites. They have to be a part of the whole group. And they make that deal. They say, okay, so that's going to be their land. The tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh, we're going to find out, they are on the east side of the Jordan River. And then chapter 33 feels like you're fast forwarding. And you've been reading through Numbers with us, and if you have been doing that, you've been noticing you've had a lot of action, but it's been slow-paced action because it's been God telling the story, basically Moses telling the story of these particular scenes, and there's a lot of attention on these particular scenes. Now it's just like we're blazing through. We're going super fast, talking about where the people went from here to here to here to here. But at the very end, it says in verse 55, but if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then those of them who remain shall be as barbs in your eyes and thorns in your side, and they shall trouble you in the land where you dwell. So there's a promise that if these people don't drive out all the people in the land, if they keep them there and they say, oh, we don't want to fight with them, they're going to end up being like barbs in your eyes. Now, I picture barbed wire fences. You know what that is? Like the chicken wire stuff. With the little spiky things. Could you imagine that going in your eyeball? That'd be terrible. I'd want to curl up and die if that happened to me. It'd be over, right? Your eye getting hit with a barbed wire. That's terrible. Okay. Now, God says, for you Israelites, when you go into the land, if you don't execute judgment on these people, if you don't drive them out of the land, then they are going to end up being like barbed wire in your eyeball. It's going to be terrible for you. For your own good, please drive them out of the land. That's what God is saying. What do you think happens? Do you think they do that completely or perfectly? No, they don't. And we're going to see that play out as we study Joshua and Judges later on. So that's our reading from Numbers. Let's turn to the book of Mark chapter 10. We see, first of all, Mark describes something that Jesus talked about. We see it in Matthew 19. Really, this is a good parallel passage. Mark 10 and Matthew 19 are very similar to each other. That Jesus teaches on divorce, and he says basically don't get divorced. Don't break the promise that God has said. This is a promise you're going to make for a lifetime. Don't break your promises. Then we see Jesus having an interaction with this guy that we call the rich young ruler, or the rich young man. Seems like he was a good guy who did all the right things, and he comes to Jesus and says, how can I have eternal life? Because I've been working for it my whole life. How can I have eternal life? And Jesus says, have you kept the commandments? And he says, of course I've kept all the commandments. And Jesus says, okay, there's still one thing you lack. Go sell everything, show that you're devoted to me, and follow me. And he says, I can't do that. I can't do that because I've got a lot of stuff. And he leaves. He doesn't follow Jesus. And that is turned into an object lesson where Jesus says to the disciples, wow, how hard is it for a rich person, a person who has a lot in this life, to leave those things behind to follow me? How hard is it for them to be saved? It's harder than anything. It's impossible, basically. And the disciples say, wow, if it's harder than a camel going through the eye of a needle, that sounds impossible. How is this even possible? This has got to be impossible. And Jesus makes something very clear. With man, it is impossible. If a rich person is going to be saved, or really any person being saved, with just themselves, that's impossible. They can't be. But with God, that is possible. Then the disciples turn around and say, hey, we've left all these things behind. I mean, we didn't leave as much behind as this rich young ruler was going to have to leave behind, but we've left stuff behind too. What do we get for leaving those things behind? And Jesus says, if you leave things behind in this life and you turn from them and you have to give things up so that you can follow me, says you're going to get back so much more. God is going to reward you, which is always an encouragement to me, and I hope it's an encouragement to you today. If you have to say no to a particular sin, and in doing that, you forfeit an opportunity, or you're not allowed to do something that would have been really fun because you're saying, I'm not going to sin in that way. If you do that, just know God is going to reward you in this life, it says, and in the life to come. Not only are these futuristic promises about our eternal rewards, also God says that he's going to give us rewards even in this life for saying no to sin and saying no to those things and to giving things up. Some people will be gifted more than others in this life, but certainly we know that God is completely just and he is going to give perfect rewards to his people who follow him in this life. And I want to be one of those people, and hopefully you do too. So thanks for reading the Bible with us today. We'll see you back tomorrow for another daily Bible reading snapshot.